The Tim Ferriss Show is regularly ranked the #1 business podcast. We analyse what makes his show so popular, so watch this video to learn some valuable lessons that you can start using today. Hey there, it's James here from riverside.fm, the platform that allows you to record studio quality video interviews and podcasts remotely. We publish 4 videos a week here showing you how you can take your recording quality to the next level, so subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss an upload. The Tim Ferriss Show is a podcast started by the author of the 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. It's a long-form interview show that started back in 2014 and has over 500 episodes with hundreds of millions of downloads. He's had guests such as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Foxx, Naval Ravikant and Jocko Willink. But how does he source these guests? Tim has a reputation and a strong network from his time as an author and investor, but even he acknowledges it takes some time to book high-profile guests for his show. For instance, Hollywood actor Jamie Foxx took a year and a half to schedule. But he also said that the biggest factor in him being able to source these high-profile guests is the ability to offer to record remotely, whenever it is convenient for them, wherever they are. Now, for some of his high-profile guests, Tim needed to make sure he was fully prepared with interesting questions that would prompt insightful answers from his guests. For in-person interviews, he ensures he has no more than 2 pages of notes in his moleskin notebook. He'll do his research, then box or circle the prompts that he wants to make sure he absolutely hits. No more than 4 or 5 per episode. Some of these prompts he knows the guest has certain stories that he can then follow up on with additional questions. He'll then take some edit notes throughout the recording, such as cuts or stops, which can be helpful when it comes to editing the show. He's hired an editor from episode 30. For the intros and outros, they'll be done after the episode, so it can be scripted and he can use prompts from throughout the recording. Tim has a nifty remote travel podcast setup, which contains everything he needs to produce his show. In this bag, he has a Yellowtech mic, which records directly to an SD card, a Zoom H6 recorder, a Shure SM58 XLR dynamic microphone with a foam pop filter, an Audio-Technica 2100 USB and XLR microphone for remote recordings, headphones which are just regular iPhone earbuds, a moleskin notebook for in-person notes, and an Evernote for remote podcast notes. Does he record remotely? Yes, he does, and he prefers it. This is what he had to say about remote recording back in 2017. This was even before tech like riverside.fm was available to give you studio quality recordings.
Podcasters will advise that you should record in person because it's better, there's a certain je ne sais quoi, something that you get in person that you don't get via the phone. I actually disagree completely. I think that if you are a novice podcaster, or even if you're very experienced, many of you will get better results recording via Skype. Why? Because when you're recording audio only, you're able to put people more at ease in many cases. You're able to look at notes. So not only can you look at what you've prepared, but you can Google things. You can look up tangents that you want to explore. You can write down things that you want to explore later without distracting the interviewee. Very important. And there are also a lot of people, even celebrities, who when you hit that record button in front of them, that red light comes on, they turn into different people. Either they shut down or they go into their sound bites, their prepared script, whatever it might be. So I really enjoy recording via Skype.
By the time Tim had started the podcast in 2014, he already had multiple best-selling books and a popular blog. However, this wasn't the key to his success, as we've seen many try to enter the podcasting game with a pre-existing audience, only to abandon them shortly after. Here are some of the things Tim recommends for growing your podcast. Number 1, upload 2 or 3 pre-recorded episodes before you launch. Prepare several episodes in advance and upload them when you launch your podcast. This will ensure that listeners have a small backlog to listen to and will help your podcast ranking as you get an influx of downloads on multiple episodes. Number 2, keep your format simple. Sometimes beginner podcasters quit because they get overwhelmed and give themselves more work than they need to. Maybe that's searching for the perfect gear or spending hours upon hours on their edit. Tim decided to minimize editing time by recording and publishing entire conversations, instead of editing the highlights of these long recordings. This has since become a staple of his podcast. As mentioned earlier, he uses a super simple recording setup and focuses on the content. Number 3, don't pursue sponsors until you have a critical mass of listeners. Tim's approach to sponsorships was that he wouldn't accept any until the show reached over 100,000 downloads per episode. This was because it can become too distracting for novice podcasters. Instead, for the first 6 to 12 months, focus on producing increasingly better work until your show grows. Number 4, effective advertising. When Tim did eventually start taking on sponsors, he ensured they were getting their money's worth and still delivered value to his audience. He did this by producing compelling advertisements, often describing at length how he uses the products himself. Number 5, get full transcripts and send highlights to journalists. Tim had a PR engine working for him from the start, landing him some extremely beneficial coverage in national outlets. He ensures that every episode has a transcript and in-depth show notes, and then he uses these to pitch journalists to get him this coverage. Number 6, utilize YouTube. Now, Tim Ferriss hasn't used YouTube to the extent that Joe Rogan has, as we explained in our breakdown linked in the top right of this video, but Tim is certainly no slouch in the YouTube game. He's uploaded the majority of his episodes, some with video, some without, along with other videos to help raise his personal brand. His YouTube channel was started long before the podcast and has since grown to almost 1 million subscribers. Number 7, experiment constantly. You might think that highly produced, labour-intensive shows get more downloads, but this isn't always the case. Often low production value, unedited conversations such as the ones you see on the Tim Ferriss Show can be the most popular. He said himself, podcasting isn't radio and there aren't any hard and fast rules. He admits that experimentation keeps things fun. He's tested solo Q&As based on Reddit submissions, conversations in a sauna, audiobook excerpts, drunk dialing fans via Skype and more. So there you have how one of the most successful podcasters of all time does it, with a focus on the conversations being the most important, while eliminating distractions has been the key to the success of the Tim Ferriss Show. Do you want to hear any more breakdowns of how successful podcasters create their shows? Leave your suggestion in the comments below. Thanks for watching. We're going to be producing a bunch more videos on this YouTube channel about podcasting, video interviews, and more. So if you want to learn more about starting and growing your podcast, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an upload. Thanks for watching.